and that's going to be service, because the other competitors in your area, they can't copy how you make people feel, how you care, the relationships. They can copy your workouts, your equipment, your all of those things can easily be copied, right? But they can't copy the relationships and again that care factor that you have within your walls. So to me, it's the ultimate competitive edge. Now it's let's get the right team. So I think we can dive in a little bit here about this aspect of it because I think this is where most owners run into problems.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today we're going up to the city of Chicago, the Windy City, to talk to Hank Ebeling. He owns two clubs up there, training clubs, H4 Training, and they just opened their second club. And I have a quick question. I want to see with two clubs, how much training you actually do. That's probably going to be my first question. And he's also the author of a book called Crushing the Competition with Customer Service. And so that's what we're going to get into. We're going to get into the key aspects of customer service and also the key results that can happen as a result of excellent customer service. And this is for anybody who's just starting out, thinking about opening a gym or just opening their own training studio, to established owners that may need that come to Jesus meeting. Maybe they've been focusing somewhere else in their business, and this will bring their focus back on customer service and make sure that doesn't erode, because that is the lifeblood of your business. Correct, Hank?
Yes, you got it. It's everything, especially in today's economic climate. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it, man. So, like I said, that's my first question. You got two clubs. How much training do you do?
Now you're referencing just myself, right? Like how much
Right.
actual
Yeah.
in the trenches do I do?
Yeah. How often, how many hours do you spend on the training floor a week?
Yeah, so myself, I'm like any business owner, you start off every hour, and then over the
Mhm.
last, I'd say year and a half, I've been able to scale it back a little bit. So I'd probably say each week I'm averaging, I'm going to say 15 hours a week.
Okay.
To scale it down, which maybe that might sound like a lot for some people, it might sound like nothing for some people, but
Right.
that's a good comfort level. About 3 sessions, I'd say about 3 sessions a day is where I'm at.
Okay. Uh,
Right.
okay, good. Well, because what I had Chris Cooper from Two Brain Business on the show, and he has this survey called the State of the Industry. And what he shows is that owners who spend less time on the training floor are more profitable because they spend more time working on their business. But that's just my personal curiosity. So let's jump into customer service. My second question, Hank, is why customer service?
Yeah, we mentioned it's super brief in the intro there, but the gym business, much like many businesses, is just becoming just the competitiveness is insane, right? Even with COVID and seeing a lot of gyms close, which was unfortunate for the good guys out there. But all that has meant is that, more of the competition has shifted online. So no matter how you look at it, competition is fierce. I mean, I think if we could go to anyone's gym listening right now that is currently owning one, you just go, throw a rock down the street and you run into a CrossFit, an Orange Theory, an F45, Jim's gym, Bob's gym, Melissa's gym. So the competition is just insane. And so how do you create that value and how do you create that separation between you and the other businesses? I mean, let's face it, you, me, we're all gym nerds. We think our secret sauce is our workout. And don't get me wrong. I mean, the better gyms have better systems and workouts. But at the end of the day, even though most people are getting more educated on it, they just see somebody getting sweaty. They go to your gym, they see people getting sweaty, they come to my gym. So your selling point, can the thing that separates you be, the workouts are better? They might be, but at the end of the day, let's say that's a given. So now how do you separate yourself? And that's going to be service, because the other competitors in your area, they can't copy how you make people feel, how you care, the relationships. They can copy your workouts, your equipment, your all of those things can easily be copied, right? But they can't copy the relationships and again that care factor that you have within your walls. So to me, it's the ultimate competitive edge. It's essentially the new marketing, right? Customer service is the new wave of marketing.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. And going back to what you said at the beginning of what the question or your answer, you said it's more competitive than ever, even coming out of COVID, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I know, like you said, I can throw a rock and hit 5 competitors. And when it becomes that competitive to the consumer, we become a commodity. And when you become a commodity, then you're subject to price wars. All right. So like they're looking and they see, okay, Bob's gym is 99, Susie's gym is 97. That's a little bit cheaper. They look like they do the same thing. Both people are getting sweaty. I'm going to go to Susie's gym. And then that, price war becomes a race to the bottom. So yeah, you definitely need that differentiator, something that makes you stand out. And I think customer service can definitely be one of those as long as it's integrated into everything you do. So take us through like some of the key points of customer service that you guys do at H4.
Yeah, I mean, kind of when you're looking at it as a whole, before you even look at, system strategies, I think you as the leader have to take a precedent and have to take priority to it in terms of that you value it, right? It has to be an importance. It has to be up there with everything else you do as a gym. Because if it just goes on the back burner, you're not gonna it's not gonna be important as things get crazy, right? As you get integrated with training and sales and marketing and everything else you do, it's gonna just kind of get shoved to the side because you yourself, who's leading the way, aren't making it a priority. So I think number one, you have to sit down and say, is customer service and the experience a top priority for you? And you might say it's not. Well, you need to make it one. And you might say, well, right now I don't have a gym yet, or I'm just opening, or I don't even have a team yet. Well, at some point, hopefully you're going to have a team, right? The goal of any business is probably to grow it. So at some point you're going to have others. So it can't just be, Jim, you think service is great and you give great service, but as you start to have a team, now you're going to have to communicate that message. So it starts and ends at the top with you, the leader. So I would say the number one thing is, for myself, I made it a priority, and therefore it's trickled down to our new hires, and it goes all the way downhill, if you will. So I'd say number one, make it a priority, and it has to sustain a priority, no matter what's going on within your business. It doesn't matter if it was a priority from day one and now you have 200 members, 300, 400 members. It can't no longer be a priority. So if you're listening, just have that mindset. It's got to be top of mind for you before you can look to do anything else.
Yeah, I like that. And I agree with that because when you are the owner, everybody looks to you to set the tone. When you're the leader, everybody looks for you to set the tone, live by example, all of those things. And also, um, how you treat your team. If you're going to build a team, you have to be a good leader. And the customer service that you give your team also trickles down into the customer service they pass on to the members and the clients. Don't correct?
Couldn't agree more. I mean, if my expectation is for my team to give X, Y, and Z service to my clients, and I'm not treating them, my team, that same way, well, I can't expect them to then treat other people that way because they're not even getting it themselves. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many leaders out there, business owners that are just not good to their employees, right? It's almost an afterthought. And then they're having all these expectations for their team. Why aren't you treating this person this way? And why don't you say this? And why don't you do that? Well, you're not even doing it to them. So you can't have that expectation.
Right. And what I find is that, at least for me, when I wasn't a good leader, I had a hard time building a team because people kept leaving because it was poor culture, because nobody wanted to work for an asshole. So I had to become a better leader. And part of that for me was becoming a better person and recognizing that, other people have needs, feelings, goals, aspirations, all of these things. And so I think it's really important because as you grow, you spend less and less time on the training floor thus less and less time in front of your clients. So the people that are spending the most time in front of your clients is your trainers. So then if you're the leader, then your top priority in customer service has to be to your trainers. If you expect them to pass that on to the members, would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, so number one starts with you, the leader. If you got that check mark, I'm bought in, I believe in it, I walk the walk, talk the talk. Well, then it comes down to the team, hiring and onboarding, which is probably where most small business owners, especially in the gym business, probably get it wrong and can improve. And like you mentioned, it doesn't matter if you give great service, the owner, because at some point you're going to build a team and you're not always there. So it doesn't matter how great you give that service unless you're going to be training every hour of every day the rest of your life, which more power to you. I think we both know that's a race to,
Burnout.
a burnout city. So now let's get the right team. So I think we can dive in a little bit here about this aspect of it, because I think this is where most owners run into problems.
Okay. So you would say number two is like onboarding and training new staff?
Yeah, I would say first making sure you get the right people.
Okay.
So often what happens to all of us, you've been there, I've been there, don't get me wrong, it happens is you get into a period maybe of accelerated growth, or just a period where someone leaves, you're unexpected, and you got to just reach and grab, shoot, I need somebody, I got to find someone, and
A
frantically
warm body.
you tend to get that warm body and you don't really do your due diligence, and it comes back to bite you in the butt more often than not. So as tempting as it is, and there's going to be certain situations, let's face it, you're going to have to rush the process a little bit, but do your best to make sure you do your due diligence. And if anything, always have a bench. I learned that from a mentor of mine. Always have a bench. So even if you think my team is set, we're money, we don't need anyone else, always have that bench ready, because we both know, and everyone knows that is listening, our industry is very transient. There's constantly people coming in and out of it, leaving, moving, doing other things. So you have to have that person ready that is quality, that you could always call and reach out to and say, hey, Jim, we just had a trainer leave, I got an opening before we didn't, I can offer you 20 hours a week, let's go, ready to go, join in with me. So I would just say have that bench ready, because that'll make it a lot easier when those tough times come and you have to reach and grab, that now you're at least not going in blind.
Right.
So that would be the first thing. And
Okay.
then, the often mistake is made is, let's hire strictly on, skills versus traits. And I think as gym owners, what do? Well, look at this guy's got a kettlebell certification and he's got level 1 this, level 2 that, and all these things, and by no means degrading any sort of certification, but that doesn't mean they're a great trainer. That doesn't mean they're a right fit for you in your gym. So let's assume, I think you'll agree with this, you and I could probably take somebody and develop them into a really good coach. Am I right?
Yep.
But
I think it's actually easier to do that.
yeah, it's easier, especially taking somebody that's green and maybe you can mold. But if you're a jerk, I can't coach the jerk out of you. If you don't care about people, if you don't have empathy, I can't get that out of you. You can have your onboarding and everything, but at the end of the day, I can totally teach you how to train, but I can't teach you to be a good person. So always look for the traits that you want over the skills. 9 times out of 10, especially for our industry, we're not doctors. You can't just look for traits and not the skills in that industry, or lawyers, things like that. But for us, you can totally coach up somebody how to be a good trainer. And as you mentioned, it's probably better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's easier in the long term. I think it's easier to coach somebody up than to break habits that they've had for a long time, that at some point they may or may not have taken ownership of. And then you get into these personality conflicts, and then it can get ugly. But what I was going to say was skills versus traits. I forget who mentioned it, but they said when they're hiring for front desk, they just have them sit and wait in a spot where they can watch them for a few minutes, and they just want to see how they react to people walking by. Are they friendly, outgoing? Do they initiate conversations? Do they smile? Because to your point, you can't train that. Either they have it or they don't, to some extent, so I agree with you there.
Yeah, and to touch on that point a little bit more, Zappos, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Zappos, probably on the Mount Rushmore of customer service companies. One of the things they do, which is very similar, is when they fly people in to do an interview in Las Vegas, they get picked up, by a transportation company, and they then go back and talk to the driver who works for them at Zappos and says, "Hey, how was that next wave of candidates that were in the van?" And they're, "Hey, you know what? That gym guy walked in, head down, didn't say one word to me, didn't say one word to anybody, looked like he was miserable. But hey, Jill over there, she was talking, she said hello to me, gave me respect." And they put heavy weight into how that person interacted with a lower level, if you will, employee of Zappos, and not just, well, they knocked it out of the park with the execs, but when they're around everyone else, they didn't have it. So that's kind of what you're talking about. How does
Right.
this potential new hire talk to the rest of your team? Maybe do a day in the life where they come in before you even make the decision, and see just how do they interact. Don't tell them to do anything, just let them
Uh-huh.
be. And that could be something that could really help you kind of vent
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. How you treat you treat the driver the same way you treat the CEO.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So hire for skills, not traits. So when does what comes next? Is that the onboarding?
No, so first you want to, as they say, not hire, but select the best person, and kind
Hmm.
of still staying on that subject. I think what you need to do is you need to create like an ITM, ideal team member. Go look at your staff if you have one, and if you don't, just think in your head what that ideal person would be, and start to write down, this person looks and feels like this, right? This is how they act. This is the qualities that they possess. And again, if you don't have a team yet, this is just going to be what you would want. And if you do have a team, who's your best person? Write down everything about them. And that's kind of what you use as a profile as you're interviewing people, to see, not to get clones of Jim, trainer Jim, but that is what I'm looking for when I'm looking for somebody, is this profile. Instead of just going into it blind, you now have a vision of, this is exactly what I want. For those listening that are sports fans like myself, we got the NFL draft coming up soon. What do those GMs do? They know the traits they're looking for in a position. If someone matches those traits, they go get them. They're not just going in there blind. Yeah, it looks like they're a right fit. They have certain criteria that they're looking for based on previous knowledge. So that's what I would do. ITM, an ideal team member. Figure that out. If you have multiple positions in your gym, a front desk, maybe you might have a sales manager, trainer, whatever the case may be, create one for each position because they're different. And that is part of your process now as people are coming through, not only looking for the traits, but that has to do with that ideal team member. And that's going to help you really make the best decision in terms of hiring, even the proper questions, which we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, I like that philosophy in business in general, kind of just reverse engineering your shot. You know what I mean? Instead of just shooting blindly, know what you're aiming for and then take your shot at it. Right. So, and that goes whether you're marketing or hiring or selecting, your staff members or marketing for new clients. All right. So we got ideal, building your ideal team member. What comes next?
So, and again, sorry, I feel like we're retracting, but we're still talking about this part of the new hire process because it is that important. Another
Mhm.
thing you can do is let them know how important your culture is right off the bat. Some of the best companies, what they do is they actually push out their culture even prior to that person coming in. So you would send off, hey, here's our core values, here's our service vision, here's what we're all about, here's how we want to serve our clients. Does this seem like it resonates with you? And if someone's like, no, I'm not into this, or, you're a gym. Well, if they give some sort of response, they might not be somebody that you want. So you could give that out prior to, or when they come in on the interview, the phone interview, you just talk about that right off the get go. Hey, we're a gym, we train people, but we're we're all about this. This is our, service vision. This is what we want people to feel when they come in here. Does this seem like something that you would be on board with? Because this is non-negotiable. These things right here that I'm going to talk to you about, I don't care how great of a trainer you are, this is non-negotiable. So right off the bat, this person is like, okay, they're serious about this culture here from a service standpoint. And it kind of weeds people out a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, now you're right there. You kind of got the right people. Keep your questioning service based. You're going to ask the typical questions of somebody looking for a training position. Maybe, have you trained before? What type of population have you trained? Have you dealt with groups, one-on-one? Those are all very relevant and good questions. But talk about service. When was a time that you delivered great service? When was a time you dealt with a client that was irritated or annoyed or angry? What was the situation? How'd you deal with it? Tell me about an experience you've had with another business that gave you great customer service or a great experience. How did that make you feel? So these are questions that kind of start to give you a little bit more insight on if this person has those traits that I'm looking for, right? Do they have the care factor? You already
Okay.
discussed the training factor. You can get them there, but do they have the care factor is what you're looking for?
Yeah. And I like that, pushing out your culture and making them basically drink the Kool-Aid in order to come on board. Yeah. This is what we're serving. You drink this or nothing.
Yeah, I believe it's for those listening in the South, I believe it's Publix, the supermarket chain that does that. They literally send it to them, the candidates, and like, hey, if this doesn't seem like it's going to align with you, don't bother continuing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then what comes next?
Okay, so now this is something that you can steal. I stole it from an entrepreneur. I think it's a great idea, and this starts with our early conversation about caring about your employees. Um, and as you're going through the process, if this seems like somebody you're probably going to hire, you ask them this question, which would be, Jim, what's something under $25 that would be an indulgence for you or something that you really enjoy? And then they're going to kind of look very confused and not sure. And you could say, is it a shaker bottle? Is it a Starbucks gift card? Is it, whatever the case may be, it's under $25. They're going to have no idea what this means. You're going to say, just give me an honest answer. This will make more sense down the road. They'll tell you, you make note of this. And then when you hire them, guess what's waiting for them? A nice card from you or your entire team, if you have one, welcoming them. And then that $25 item, Starbucks gift card. In the past, we've had a trainer, this specific coffee from Hawaii that he visited and absolutely loved. So we ordered that. There's been just all sorts of, these special cookies that someone loved, shaker bottle, fancy shaker bottle, whatever it is, you get it for them. And you want to talk about blowing them away from day one. They're getting a handwritten card from you and your team and something that you paid attention to and listened to from, could have been days or weeks ago, and then you gifted them. It totally surprises them, starts them off on the right foot, builds that trust. Now they're saying, hey, you know what? This guy's taking care of me. I can take care of his clients. So
Yeah.
I would really say to try to do something like that right off the bat. It'll really kind of throw them for a curveball in the interview, but it'll make sense eventually.
Yeah, no, I like that quite a bit, because then that makes an impact. They always remember that and they start off with that enthusiasm. Yeah. And they're at that point, they're a dry sponge ready to soak up
And,
anything.
and most onboardings are in any business are very underwhelming, right? And
Uh-huh.
a lot of people remember their first day working somewhere almost like it's a first date, right? They have that connection and that experience. So, and as you said, that's when people are, they're a sponge. They can soak up as much as possible. So this is now, once you made the proper hire, now is where you really got to put in the time. And that's kind of what we can dive into here.
Okay. All right. Let's jump into it, man. All right. So after I get my Def Leppard t-shirt, and I'm starting, what happens next?
Great choice, by the way. Great choice.
I'm always going to go with the vintage. Good luck finding it for under 25 these days.
Yeah.
All right. So once I start and I get my gift, what happens next?
So now we're on the onboarding. This is generally what most businesses do wrong, which is they give you a little notebook, maybe nothing at all, and they just say, hey, couple quick things, or Jim's the veteran trainer here, go talk with him, he'll show you the ropes, he'll walk you around, which is a mistake, because if you didn't build that culture to begin with, maybe Jim is disgruntled, he doesn't buy in, now he's teaching this new person who's spongy and can soak up all this bad things. So as the owner and leader, you need to be there for that beginning of the onboarding. Don't pass it on. If you have a big team, don't just pass it on. You need to be there. I would say at the bare minimum, at least for that first day. So that would be number one thing, is make sure you're involved, because what kind of message does that send if supposedly this whole service culture and taking care of people that you speak of, but then you're not even there to lead the charge for me on day one? That doesn't really look like it's that important then, is it? So make sure you're there. Make sure you're there. And then the next thing is day one, like for us, we talk zero about training. And in fact, we don't even talk about training at all for an entire week. We don't mention a lunge, a deadlift. We don't mention anything regarding exercise. In fact, a lot of our new hires will kind of look at us funny and, wait, what do you mean? We're just talking about service? And like, I've never even had a first day where we talk about this, let alone for a gym. But again, it just sets that tone. So what you need to develop within your gym is, what are some service points for you? So for us, we have 14, and just some examples, very commonly heard, don't use the word no, right? Make people feel VIP. Treat people how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated. There's that common old, right? Treat people how you want to be treated. But Jim, me and you are two different guys. I might want to be treated maybe a little bit different than you, right? So treat them how they want to be treated. And another one is world stops mentality, which is, Jim, you and I are at the desk, we're talking, here comes the client in, it doesn't matter what our conversation involved, that ceases, that person that walked in the door has become the most important person. So we call it world stops mentality. So those are just a couple of them, but we have 14, you could have 5, you could have 10, you could have 12, whatever you want, but I would come up with, for you and your business, what are these key service points that are non-negotiable, that's the expectation when this trainer works for you, is they're going to uphold those points. And we talk about them one by one. And then the other thing we do is we give examples, just like I did there, of what does this look like in a training setting. So, the word no, right? If a client says, hey, can I come in at 2:00 for training sessions? Instead of saying, well, no, it's busy, I could say, right now I think 2 is a little full, would 3 work for you? How about 1:00? Or either of those work for you? So just a simple little adjustment. Or within a training session, can I do that squat? No, we're going to do something else. Let's try this. I think it'll work better for you. Okay. So give those examples so it can resonate with them. Okay, this is what it looks like now within the environment that I'm going to be in. So we walk through the service points. We talk about the gym itself. So what's the history of your gym? Is it brand new? Has it been around for 20 years? Has it been passed down generations? Is it a family business? What's the history, right? People kind of want to know, what am I getting into? What's this rich culture about? And then if you have core values, which can be sometimes intermingled with your service points, talk about those. So that first day is only about culture and service, and that's it. Zero about training. Don't talk about a lunge. Don't talk about how to coach a session, because The minute you start doing that and then try to sprinkle in service talk, it's just going to get lost, right? People are going to start thinking about exercises and coaching, and now it's lost and you got no chance. But at this beginning, we've said it, they're a sponge. This is the time when you got to give them all this stuff to soak in. And there's a thing called service aptitude, which is essentially somebody's ability to recognize an opportunity, right? To create like a service moment or a wow moment. And most people, they get this either from life experiences, which, as we know in the fitness space, it's very young, right? It's skewed young. So you have a lot of trainers that are young who sometimes are 20, 30, 40 years younger than our client base. And a lot of times not in the same uh, socioeconomic status. So now you're asking them to provide Ritz-Carlton level service, things like this, things that they haven't even experienced. So you can't expect they had it from previous life experiences. The other way they're going to have service aptitude is generally from previous work experience. And as we've mentioned, most owners have failed at this, so you can't expect them to have that. And if this is their first job, then they don't even have that. And the third is going to come from the current job experience. And that's ding, ding, ding. That's where you come in, the leader, the owner. This is now how you can mold them and teach them and educate them on the importance of service. So day one, it's going to be tough. You're going to want to talk trainer talk, but you just can't do it. You got to just make it all about your culture, what you've built, service points, and how they play a role in this. That's the key thing. How do they play a role? Why is this important? Is this just fluff, or okay, I need to do this because X, Y, and Z, right? It's going to lead to better retention. And if we have more retention, we have more clients, we get more referrals. This means, hey, more opportunity for you, more opportunity maybe for more money. So they start to understand the importance of this big picture.
Got it. I like that quite a bit. And I really like the service aptitude because that was very well put. It was something that I've always known, but that I've never heard it phrased that way. So I like that, the service aptitude, just that gap in experience that you just can't transfer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that could be too, as a leader, where when you take care of your team and treat them, maybe you give them a little, nice gift to go to a nice restaurant or things like that, so they can experience kind of what you're talking about from a service standpoint.
Yeah. And also kind of what maybe the clients experience on a regular basis and what they're used to and what they're expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I like it. All right. So what comes after that?
Okay. So you day one, it's just culture. It's just everything service related. And now after that, I would say really try to get people on your floor. And again, we're not going to talk anything. I tell our new hires, I don't want to hear anything about what you see from an exercise standpoint or why someone's doing something or not. I just want you to start to make observations and start to build relationships, because the goal of all of our businesses is, if we become a transaction, we lose. If people don't quit relationships, they quit transactions, as they say. So we want to build the best possible relationships. And so most people don't know how to do that, especially if they're young and they're right out of college. And now they're dealing with people way older than them. So let's just start to build relationships. Let's observe, pay attention to people. What do you see from them? What do they like? What do they dislike? How they like to be coached? How they don't like to be coached? What does their personality look like? How do they interact with coaches? How do the coaches interact with them? And then we just say, I just want you to just log notes like crazy about everybody that you meet, because this is going to build relationships and be the foundation as we move forward. And they say, if you have a minimum relationship with someone, they're Ford. Not sure if your listeners have heard of this acronym, and it's FORD. The F stands for family, O stands for occupation, R stands for recreation, and the D stands for dreams. Think of it as goals, things like that. So at a bare minimum, you as a coach should know people's Ford. And that doesn't happen overnight, right? It's not an awkward first date where you're going to say, hey, Jim, do you have kids? Okay, great. What do you do for a living? Okay. And Do you rock climb, you golf, perfect, and you want to lose 20 pounds, great. But no, it's going to take time to develop. And as you build relationships, you're going to start to know this. And that's what we focus on for days, a week, sometimes 2 weeks, just getting to know people and build those relationships. Because what does that do? If you look ahead, one, it's going to give a way better experience, right? Because now that trainer is familiar with these individuals way better, and it's going to be a better comfort level on both ends. And at the end of the day, it's also going to help us down the road for what we'll talk about later, which certain tactics with service and experience, because now you can personalize things when you really know somebody versus not having that tight relationship. So
Yeah.
get your trainers and your team just to focus on early on. Just build relationships, talk to people, get to know them, introduce yourself, know the ins and outs of them. So down the road, it's going to really benefit you.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that acronym FORD. Um, and then at any point as you're taking, new hires through this process, does anybody ever wash out? Does anybody say, you know what, it's not for me? Or is there anybody you said, you know what, you're not right for this position?
No, not maybe within the first week or two, but I will tell you what it does do. If you've set the stage, how important this is, one key thing we'll say in the interview is, these first 2 weeks when you're here with us, I'm not going to look for anything related to training. I don't care if you can't coach a squat, if you mess up explaining a push up. I'm simply going to look for, do our existing client base, do they come to me and say, who's this new guy? Who's this new girl? Wow, I feel like Jim really cares. I feel like Melissa really cares. If I get lots of feedback from people just about those things, I'll know right away it's a good fit. If it's crickets, nobody's really saying much about you, no one's really mentioning your name, I see you standing in the corner, before we even talk about exercise, I'll probably know it might not be a good fit, just simply by that. And we let them know that right off the get-go, that hey, we don't hire you, our clients hire you. And
Mm.
it's that simple. They're the ones paying. If they don't see it as a fit, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what we think, it's not a fit. And we literally say that to them in the interview, just so they know up front that, a little bit, that they're on stage, and this is why it's so
Hmm.
important to build these relationships.
I like that a lot. I do. Yeah. And a lot of this just keeps a lot of that kind of, I don't know, chatter, useless chatter that trainers tend to go on about, their weekend or their accomplishments or anything like that. It keeps it focused on the client, which improves their client experience. I like that. Okay, so what comes next after the Ford?
Yeah, we like to do after a good week or two of them building relationships, we give them we call it a legacy test, but essentially we give them a quiz on what we've talked about so far, which is the culture. We'll ask questions. When did the gym start? We'll ask them, name 3 of our core values, name 3 of our service points. And then we'll usually give them a couple clients that we've known that they have met, and we'll quiz them. Here's Jim, here's Melissa, here's Bill. Tell us as much as you know about their Ford. And then based on that quiz, you'll kind of see right away, okay, this person's getting it, they're on the right track, or they're going to sit there and go, yeah, you know what, I don't know much about Jim, honestly. And hey, you've interacted with that guy 4 times now and you don't know anything about him, like that's not good. So maybe we
Hmm.
need to kind of dive in a little bit more. So we kind of give that, we call it our legacy test, and that lets us know if this stuff is absorbing up here in their brain.
I like it. Okay. And then if they do well on the legacy test, what happens?
Then now we start to get into training, right? How to
Uh-huh.
run systems from a training standpoint. Then we start to move on to the trainer stuff, if you will.
Okay.
But just don't rush it. You're going to want to get to those things, but the time to talk about all this is just at the beginning when it's fresh. And then don't make the mistake now just talking about it day one and never again, because then
Hmm.
that's like not talking about it at all. So set the stage, let them know the importance of it, and then hold them accountable as they continue on early in those stages. Make sure you're holding them accountable to doing these things.
Yeah. I really like this. You know what? One of the things I like the most about it is the entire time that we've been talking about customer service and the customer experience, we've only talked about the customer a very small percentage. Most of it has been leadership, team, staff training, onboarding, because those are the people that are going to be delivering the customer service and the customer experience, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it starts and ends from you. It trickles down to that team, and then it goes to, yes, your client is really important, but without the team, you're not going to have very many of them if you have a bad team. So,
Okay. Yep. I agree. So anything else that we left out?
no, I think, we kind of dove into it pretty heavy there. So I think that's a
Okay.
pretty good start for most people. And hey, you know what? A lot of this stuff, if you're listening, might sound like fluff or foo or, oh gosh, yeah, these are basics. But if you just assume anybody you bring on board just knows how to do these things, you're wrong. We talked about the
Hmm.
service aptitude. Don't just assume people know how to give great service. If that was the case, every business would have great service, right? That's kind of like assuming everyone knows how to get into great shape. Well, we'd all have six pack then, right?
Hmm. Yeah, these are the fundamentals, and everybody knows you got to get the fundamentals down before you can move on to any of the sexy stuff. So, Hank, this has been great, man. I really appreciate it. And then you've listened to a couple of episodes, you said, so you knew this was coming. This isn't like a check left hook. I don't know if you're a UFC fan. Did you see the last UFC card where the guy like
When
with
it's
the rubber
Saturday,
foot? Yeah.
yeah, that's one of those injuries where you just kind of you block the
Oh,
face and you just look away.
oh, it's cringeworthy, but I've watched it like 20 times. But because I
Yeah,
just think
it's
it's
part of it's
amazing.
a car accident, right? You can't take your
Yeah,
eyes off it, but
exactly. Exactly. So, but you know what's coming. So, it's my favorite part of the show. So, my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you didn't think you were going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from it that propelled you to greater success down the road.
yeah, I think it goes back to even pre-ownership of a gym. I actually worked for a chain called Equinox, which many people might be familiar with. Spent about 4 or 5 years training and got my shot at management. And I thought I was doing things the right way, focusing on much of the stuff we're talking about now, relationship building, always on the floor. But I wasn't spending as much time with the business side of things. I think that most corporate places want to see. And it came to a point where they basically relieved me of, the manager duties, which I thought I had done a great job. And I think it was just a good lesson. And A, maybe why you don't want to work for corporate, and B, just, you know, take a step back sometimes, understand, okay, I'm doing everything I think I'm doing well, but maybe not as well as I need to. So that was kind of a little bit of a kick in the face, if you will, at the time. But it forced me to just focus more on my eventual goal of opening a gym. It gave me actually more time to focus on me selfishly. So at the time it was rough, but in the end it actually helped me significant.
It worked out. And then how do you think that helped you once you did open your own gym?
I think it was more even just it helped me just get to that point more because I was,
Okay.
when you're in a manager position, your focus, well, it should be, is on everyone else. And
Hmm.
you kind of almost sometimes forget about yourself. And so this
Yeah.
allowed me to refocus on myself and what I was trying to do. And then I think once you own a gym and you're managing people, is to maybe pay attention to how they're managing. And it might not necessarily be exactly how you do it, but if it's
Hmm.
effective, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not right. And I think that's kind of maybe what they failed to see with myself and what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. But it also reduced your comfort level. It's hard to make radical change when you're comfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, my next question is, since you've been in the fitness industry, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming? COVID is not available for answer.
Let's see. That's a good one. I mean, I think sometimes, we got into we talked so much about team. I was blessed to have a team for 4 years without anyone really leaving. And we had a great team. No one was leaving, great retention. And then all of a sudden it was like, nothing bad that we had done from a culture standpoint. We just had somebody move. We had somebody, get into another field that they were studying for on the side. And all of a sudden it went from, wow, we got this perfect team, everything's smooth, love it. And then all of a sudden it was like, blink of an eye, holy cow, I got two people left and I got to kind of rebuild this thing. And it just goes back to the culture and rebuilding it. And we've been able to do that, fortunately. But so that was kind of, a little unexpected. He kind of got in this comfort zone of, hey, it's always going to be like this way.
Yeah.
And that's not the case in the
Yeah.
gym.
Yeah, that's true. But it's nice to have that system in place, that hiring and onboarding system. So then you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you got to bring on a new team member. All right. And then my last question is, where do you go for your personal and professional development?
Yeah. I'm a big podcast guy. Obviously, your podcast is amazing. There's so many of them. I mean, Durkin's got a great one. Gary Vee, I think, is great from sales and marketing. We could list endless amounts of books. A book that everyone should read if you haven't. One of the most successful books of all time is How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. Old school book. We give it to every intern and new hire because a lot of what we talk about from a service standpoint and relationships is in that book. And so I think it's a must read for anybody. In fact, that's something you should read maybe like 2-3 times a year for like the most basic concepts, but super important.
Yeah, right now they're basic concepts. When that book first came out, it was groundbreaking, but now it's become the standard, right? So yeah.
And you know what else I would say too? Sorry to interrupt you. Is that look outside of our industry. It's great. Look at what the best guys are doing in our industry, of course, but look outside of our industry. Some of the best ideas come from other industries, and specifically from a service standpoint. Look at the hotel business. Look at restaurants. They're the ones that really excel. Find books in those areas. Look for courses. Read up on what the best of the best are doing in those areas, and you can kind of borrow those ideas and use them within the gym space.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great idea. Because one of my mentors, Rick Mayo, he belongs to.
Oh, Rick, yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, he's the dude, man. He's the guy. But he belongs to a mastermind group that has members from all different industries, all different businesses and industries. And so they get together and put their heads together and compare notes. And that's where he gets some of his ideas from as well. So yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, thanks a lot for bringing that up.
Yeah, there's a great book. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but I might even be pronouncing his name wrong, but the guy that started Ritz-Carlton, Horst Schultz, or I can't even pronounce.
Oh, Howard Schultz? No, that's the Starbucks guy.
He's got a name similar. He's a German guy.
Okay.
Just look up Ritz-Carlton founder book. The name's on the top of my head, but just a great book from a service standpoint. I think the guy's name is Horst Schultz. I think it's his last name's pronounced, but Horst Schultz maybe.
Okay.
Totally butchering that, but put it in Google and you'll find it.
Well, you know what? I'm going to put it in the show notes. Just go to trainergym.net, click on this episode of the podcast, and the links to both of those books will be in the show notes. So Hank, this has been great, man. Where can people reach out to you, get in touch, get more info?
Yeah, they can find me on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook at Hank Ebeling, LinkedIn. Like me, I'll like you back. Shoot me a comment if you have any questions, anything we talked about today. I'd be happy to, touch base with you and help you out. We're a tight bunch, us gym owners, so we're always willing to help each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, those links will be in the show notes as well. So just go to the same trainergym.net, click on this episode. If you want to reach out to Hank, say hi, ask him some questions, just say thank you, whatever you want to do. So
yeah, and if you want to check out, maybe you were going to get to it too. I have a book called Crushing the Competition with Service. A lot of what we talked about on this podcast is in that book, just goes a little more in depth. So definitely check it out. It'll kind of give you a systematic approach to think about service.
Absolutely. And that link will be in the show notes with the other books. So yeah, we mentioned it at the top of the podcast, but I'm glad you brought it back up. Definitely go on. Is it on Amazon?
Yep, it's on
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah, go on Amazon and check it out, or better yet, use the link.
Yes,
So, Hank, this has been great, man. I like to reserve the right to have you back on at some point.
of course. I'd absolutely love it. Maybe next time we'll both come on with some UFC nicknames we can start the show with, right?
Yeah, I'll start shopping some around the gym.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the good weather.
All right, you too. Thanks again, Jim.
No problem, man.